As somebody who experiences this sort of latency and input lag on a regular basis, I've come to the conclusion that YouTube needs some sort of video talking about how to best play in this. So if you're somebody that experienced this sort of circumstance while you're playing or trying to compete for these team of the season cards and things like that in your red picks, this is how I deal with it. What is up, guys? It's P from PTV, and today I have a question that I'd like to pose to you. How many of you have experienced massive latency or input lag in any of your FUT Champions weekend league games? Yeah, me too. That said and agreed upon, you know, it's a love-hate relationship when it comes to FIFA. You know, I can't stand the latency in the input, but I just love football, and I love the way that FIFA sometimes gives me the opportunity to feel like when it comes to, you know, passing and being really clinical around the net, just slicing and dicing my way, you know, through my opponent's defense and inevitably just like passing the ball into the back of the net. That's the type of stuff that just really gets me going, you know. For other people, it might be the opportunity to add some flair, some sauce, you know, stuff that they do in real life or that they wish they could do in real life and put it into the game, you know. Shout out to all my skillers out there. You guys know who you are. But for most of us, it's football itself. It's the tradition and the pageantry and all that stuff. And even as an American, I have to concede, as American sports go, there's not really much like it. I've got to say that, you know. That said, FIFA's our best bet, especially in these times with quarantine and you know, the coronavirus and things like that happening. FIFA's kind of our best bet to sort of scratch that itch with like no sports going on and stuff. And with everything going on in the FIFA servers and stuff like that, and its only competition being PES is simply not doing good enough on the gameplay side, FIFA's kind of like what we're left with. Now, before we jump into the reason why we're here, let me preface this conversation a little bit with sort of like my setup and the things that I have to operate like at a high level. You know, as a streamer, well, an aspiring streamer and YouTube content creator, I have to have like some of the best equipment and the best internet service to be able to, you know, dish out content at a high level for you guys. That said, you know, my internet provider, I get 1,000 download speed and like 100 upload speed. On the screen right now, I'm gonna go ahead and put down some statistics for you guys. This is what I run typically. Like during the middle of the day, my wife's streaming Netflix and my daughter's streaming Netflix, or she's streaming a game from the PlayStation store. I'm streaming Netflix and playing the game at the same time. This was a test that I did with all that going on. And these numbers right here, they are more than enough to be able to operate on FIFA servers at a high level, right? Another thing that I've got going on, I have an Alienware monitor, right? This thing right here is like what some of the like Call of Duty or Battle Royale first-person shooter professional gamers use to give themselves an advantage. Now, this 26-inch Alienware monitor that I have boasts 240 hertz like refresh rate, which basically gives it like a 1 millisecond response time. That basically means everything that I'm seeing on the screen is being delivered to my eyes in the fastest way visually possible, you know? Now, like I said earlier, I am American and specifically a Texan, right? So I live in the state of Texas. For those of you who are not familiar with North American geography, Texas is this state right here. It's in the central southernmost region of the United States. Now, after doing some digging, I found that there are only 2 servers across the entirety of my country, which is a massive country, let's be honest. It also hosts a very large population. It's rumored that these 2 servers are not only exclusive just to FIFA, but they're used in all Electronic Arts, that's EA, their platforms, all their games, right? So these titles like Madden and Apex Legends and Battlefront, for example, I mean, there are a lot of other games that EA has published. They also use these servers, and so the amount of traffic that these servers are experiencing is just ridiculous. Now, these servers, I found after doing even more digging, are supposedly located on each coast. One on the western coast in Northern California. I went on to Google Maps and I double-checked how far that is from me. Now, from the West Coast server in California all the way to the biggest city near me in Texas is 1,436 miles away. On the other side of things, the other server is located on the eastern coast of the United States, that one being in Virginia, which is 1,342 miles from me. To put that into perspective, these are both about 20-hour car rides. You know, give or take, depending on how you're, so 20 to 22, 23-hour car rides, probably. 2.5 to 3 hour plane rides. That That's the best perspective I can give you guys. But plot twist, there's actually a third server. It's not located in my country, but it is the closest one to me, and that's a server in the country of Mexico. Now, this server is in Mexico City, and the server in Mexico City, you would think, I'm going to show you guys on the map right here, you would think, oh, that's actually way closer. You're connecting probably really, really well. Psych, Texas is a humongous state. Mexico is also a fairly good-sized country here. Now, that server, although closer than the ones on either coast, is still located 1,129 miles away from me. That is, all of this equates to what I experienced, you know, in the matchmaking section of each FUT Champs game. They give you latency in 1 to 5 bars, color-coded from red, orange, green obviously being the best. I still roughly get 3 to 4 bars and experience about 45 to 65 milliseconds of latency, according to the matchmaking that FIFA offers. But we all know, as bad as that is, I know a lot of people are getting much better than me, and a lot of people are getting much worse, to be fair. But as bad as that is, it feels sometimes so unplayable in game. I'm like, yo, there's no way that's even 65 milliseconds of latency. That's got to be, I don't know, God knows the number, right? So it definitely feels slower in game. If you still don't believe me, maybe you're sitting here like, this guy doesn't experience latency, go and watch my RTG Road to Elite series that I upload 5 times a week on this same exact channel. In that channel, you guys will see every single game chopped up into highlight form from my weekend league every single weekend. You guys will see the input lag, the latency, the lag that I experience, the emotion that comes out when I experience. Unfortunately, sometimes it's pretty bad. And that comes down to like passes not being registered, skill moves not registered, sometimes even to the point where I'm one-on-one with the goalkeeper and my shots don't register. Come, he didn't shoot it! Yo, he didn't shoot it! Oh, this game. I'm sure you guys can imagine how furious that makes me. Now, as somebody who experiences this sort of latency and input lag on a regular basis, I've come to the conclusion that YouTube needs some sort of video talking about how to best play in this. So if you're somebody that experienced this sort of circumstance while you're playing or trying to compete for these team of the season cards and things like that in your red picks, this is how I deal with it. Okay, so tip number 1, match formations, man, matching your opponent's formations. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people would be like, yo, what about my style? What about my play style? Your play style is completely dictated by the formation that you play. So that being said, I figured it was more important to go with the formation before the style. Now, you need to understand, I've always been and have always loved playing, and all the other FIFAs that I've played competitive roughly from like FIFA 16, 17, all the way up, I've loved 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. That ticky-tock fast passing, just no touch, just first time passing all the way up the field. That's what gets me going. But lately, 9 out of 10 times, I'm going to experience my opponent playing in the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-4-2. Now, you could say that the reasoning behind that could be a bunch of things. It could be that truly is the meta, or it could just be people going onto YouTube and finding, you know, these custom tactics, and these people are just copy and pasting custom tactics from these pros or YouTubers who, you know, do fairly well, whatever the case is. The whole, like, your own style, apparently it doesn't exist in FIFA competitive mode. That's really, really unfortunate, but it's something that I've had to kind of succumb to. Now, the reason that you match these formations, whether it's 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2, is so that you don't come across something that's called formation disadvantage. Now, the reason why I couldn't run 4-1-2-1-2 anymore is because that formation was so easily exploited against the very balanced and defensive 4-2-3-1 and 4-4-2 with the overload on the wings, whether it's the outside cams in the 4-2-3-1 or the wide mids plus the fullbacks in each position. So my fullbacks were basically being attacked and overlapped by 2 separate pair of sideline players. Now, when you do this, when you match formation, it basically says, hey, ixnay on formation advantage or disadvantage, and it comes down to 2 more things. Roster quality, the types of players and quality of players that you have on your team, and user skill. Let's say if both players have the same exact team, it's going to come down to who's the better player for the most part. Let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is possession, man. You want to play possession style when you're experiencing lots of latency and input lag. This is for a couple of reasons, man. Honestly, a lot of people look at shots and the total accumulated shots on target and stuff like that when they're at halftime or when they're at the end of the game to kind of gauge whether they should have won or not. And they're like, oh, I lost this person, but at the other end of things, the other person might be playing a better possession game, getting less shots than you, but they're working higher quality shots. I know that's really, really frustrating to hear, but if you have 20 shots on goal, it doesn't necessarily mean you can win, because I can kick the ball from mid-pitch, put it on target, and that's going to count as one shot for me. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm playing quality. It just means I'm spamming the shot button, right? I'm not working shots well in. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to focus on your possession. Possession through passing is what's most important. Talk about skilling here in a minute. Passing is understanding my formation so I get to where all of my triangles are. If you're unfamiliar with that, triangles and that concept in football or within FIFA for that matter, try to put something on the screen for you guys right now. Triangles are what football players use on the pitch to make sure that they are always putting themselves in position where there's an outlet and they're sort of attacking or they're being aggressive and just kind of overloading the zone that is the defender's area, right? So understanding where all of your triangles are anywhere on the pitch. It doesn't matter if you're being pressed and you have the ball in your back line. Your goalkeeper counts as part of your triangle. That's what a lot of people don't understand. You have 11 men on the pitch and you're only passing between 10 of them, or maybe you're even passing between less of them. You need to expand that to 10 and then slowly expand that to 11. If somebody's putting the press on you, passing it back to your goalkeeper can be one of your biggest advantages to help you switch the play to the other side of the field and then begin an organized attack while your opponent is trying to kind of like get back into position or whatever the case is. Now, one of the things that a lot of people do, they want to understand, what if my passing is not great? What if I want to be that skiller, that saucer, right? Everybody wants to be that, and there are still skill moves that you can use sort of against the latency, right? The shot fake is still very good. The ball roll is still pretty solid. The drag back is really solid. Outside of that, I've noticed every single time that I'm experiencing games in high levels of latency and input lag, when I try to skill, I end up skilling myself into difficult positions because I'm just not able to react fast enough against my opponent. And that leads you to different positions where you're turning the ball over in really, really bad spots on the pitch. If you're turning the ball over sort of in the middle of the pitch and you're not in your opponent's final third of the pitch, you're going to be getting counterattacked a lot. And trust me, what's worse than trying to have solid build-up play in the attack in latency is trying to stop counterattacks in bad latency. So, I mean, it's kind of a pick your poison thing. I don't recommend, if you're experiencing what I'm experiencing in Weekend League, I don't recommend that you try to do, the quality 4-star or 5-star skills. Now, there are exceptions to this rule, especially when you do get into the final third. You need to be a little more creative. I get that. I'm talking about general build-up play and passing into your opponent's back of the net, beating players that are on your skill level, maybe even a little bit better to get to that high elo. Once you get to the high elo in Foot Champions and Weekend League, then things kind of, you can interpret them differently, and you need to make sure that, you're being a little more creative and you're not as predictable. That's a different video for a different time. This video is just trying to get your feet wet, get you up towards pushing for elite every time. All right, boys, the third and final tip of the video to play and experience and push to elite within lots of latency and input lag is tip number 3, know your personnel. Now, this goes for both sides of the pitch. You want to know all of your personnel and you want to know all of your opponent's personnel. But for now, we're just going to stick to your personnel. Now, when you're talking about the formation you're running and the triangles and you're bringing players in that are conducive to the style that you're trying to play. Now, I know I said match the formations of your opponent, and that still rings true here, but there are different styles of play inside the formation that you're matching. Now, 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2, you're like, there's only so much I can do. That's not true. For example, something that I really like to do, especially when I'm playing in the 4-2-3-1, I enjoy using my fullbacks in order to overlap and then get involved into the attack to sort of overload my my opponent's defense, especially on the wings. I'm noticing that the wings are a really, really good place to try to spam in order to get the ball towards your opponent's final third of the pitch. Now, I've recently packed Team of the Season Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is fantastic, by the way. His weak foot, especially, he's a 4-star, 3-star, which is not fantastic in general as far as the game goes, but it is good enough, and considering his stats and traits, he is good enough to get forward and help me, right? The 4-star weak foot especially helps with passing. If you didn't know that, if you're passing the ball on your opponent's, on your player's weak foot and they have like a 2-star weak foot, you're going to notice that the passing, no matter what the stat is, sometimes the passes are going to go way away from where you want them to go. Now, his 4-star weak foot gives him the opportunity to pass the ball into space accurately, and I really appreciate that along with all the stats that he has. On the other side of things, I have the SBC version of Kieran Tierney from Arsenal, represent the Gunners. You know how it goes. But his card is not as strong in attack as Team of the Season Trent Alexander-Arnold. He is high, and he's only 3-star, 3-star, and you'll notice that he has good stats and good pace and things like that, but when it comes to agility and his passing, it leaves a lot to be desired. You're like, yeah, you could boost those with a chem, but to be honest with you, I'm sort of a conspiracy theorist when it comes to the passing and dribbling chem boosts. In my experience, the physicality and the defensive chem boost do a lot more. So without his base stats being there, I just say, you know what? Go ahead and get the defensive and the physical boost, and I'm going to leave you on stay back while attacking. You're going to be more of a defensive fullback. Now, will that change if I pack somebody else who's a more attacking fullback? Absolutely, because I want my fullbacks in the attack. But because I'm under the circumstance where I can't afford another player right now, that is my style of play. I'm playing to my team's strengths, and I'm playing to my advantages. I'm not going to put Tierney in places where I don't trust him to be, and then get mad at him when he turns the ball over in a bad portion of the pitch. It's just not fair, right? Obviously, I still pass it to him, to kind of like break presses and things like that. But as far as getting forward on the overlap, I don't want him doing that as much. Now, if you're saying, hey, I don't even have the types of players like that, like you're using to even compare, to even make that sort of assessment. But the fact is, in this period of FIFA, there are cards that are just wildly available for you at a really discounted rate. Let's take the objective Spanish left back here, whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce because you guys will butcher me in the comments if I get it wrong. He looks tremendous. On the surface, when you're just looking on the outside of the card, you look at these numbers of his stats, and he looks really, really good. Now, when you dive a little bit deeper into that, and you're like, I like attacking fullbacks, right? And you dive a little bit deeper into that, and you say, okay, well, let's see what he's really rocking. You're going to notice two humongous problems. The first problem is he's 2-star, 3-star, right? And based on what we've talked about on how I prefer my fullbacks, you're going to say, okay, hey, that's a huge problem, right? If he doesn't like Tierney getting up there with a 3-star, 3-star, then maybe, he's probably not going to like it. And you would be absolutely right. The second thing is you notice, okay, hey, the stats say he's also still a very good defender. Maybe I'll just complete the objective and make sure I put him on stay back while attacking, and he'll be more of a defensive one. The stats are just so good. The second big problem that you'll notice with this is he has a high medium work rate. A lot of people aren't believers in work rates. To put it short and put it mildly, I am. If you've ever seen any of my other instructional custom tactics videos, I always tell you, please, please, please mind your work rate. So if I want him to be a defensive style fullback, I'm not going to put him there in a position to fail as a high medium work rate player. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to him. I wouldn't do that to myself and then get mad. It's the same thing as Tierney. You might be thinking, okay, well, like what other styles would you consider? If I run 4-2-3-1 or even 4-4-2, right? It depends on your style. Work rates and skill moves and weak foot surround the idea behind the stats. A lot of people they fall in love with the stats, and stats are important, so I'm not saying they're not. But what I am saying is you have to take the entire card into consideration. Now, for my style, I main the 4-2-3-1 now that I'm attempting to be competitive in Weekend League. And I got to tell you, my two DMs, I prefer them with high work rates. I want them to get forward. I want them to be able to, take on a pass back from my cam or my striker or the outside cams in order to kind of alleviate some pressure that they have. So they need to be able to get forward. And in rare occurrences, I even prefer my midfielders to overlap when I'm playing someone who I just need to get a little more creative with. That's one thing you consider. Okay, so, maybe you're the type of person that's like, okay, now that I know that the weak foot affects the passing, I need to make sure that I only have minimum 4-star weak foot CMs. Fair play to you, man. That's how you want to play. It is all perspective. It is all what you prefer. And it's basically, if you want to play a lesser card on a position, especially at this portion of the team of the year, fair play. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure it matches what you want to do on the pitch. Everybody going to YouTube and searching custom tactics and literally copy and pasting everybody's custom tactics, It might work and it might not. You might luck out and have the same style as the YouTuber that you're looking at. You might have the same types of player and the quality of players that those YouTubers have. Again, fair play. It might work, but the vast majority of us, it's not going to work to copy and paste because you have to make your team your own. And that's just, if I'm getting anything to you out of this tutorial, right? I know we've expanded far past, you know, just playing in latency, but this last tip is super important and it transcends the latency conversation. Make sure your team is yours and you understand how it plays and you don't try to operate outside of your means. Okay, if I get anything through to you, I hope that's what that is. Those are my 3 tips, man. And in conclusion, I gotta say, I didn't talk too much about defense. If you guys would like another defense, how to play defense and high latency FUT Champs competitive gameplay, leave that down in the comment section down below, man. If you want to see how I operate, man, again, I'm going to plug this RTE, this Road to Elite series that I have, man. I'll make sure I leave it down in the description, the link for that playlist. I'll also make sure I put a like a card up top for you to click on if that's something that you're interested in, man. I highly recommend it. I of course I'm biased, but I think it's pretty entertaining myself. Now, last couple things I got to say to you. Try your hardest not to rage at Weekend League. It's really not worth it. I know the Team of the Season players are in packs and it's lovely, but even top 100 players are getting big oofs as their, you know, their red picks, for example. So just play how you want to play your style within those competitive formations and you guys are going to be fine. I really hope all these tips are as helpful as they can be. I'm not trying to make this video super long, but if you guys want anything else, if you have any more questions, feel free to hit the comment section. I promise to answer each and every single one of your comments, man. That said, it's been P from PTV. Thank you guys so much for clicking on the video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're brand new so you get alerted every single time we go with a new live video, whether it's a tutorial or otherwise, man. And I will see you guys in the next one, man. Good luck. Peace.